Hi, everyone. We'll be getting started in just a moment. Hi, everyone. We're going to be getting started in just a moment. We do have a lot of people who've signed up, so I'm going to wait just a little bit here before we actually get started. Please go ahead and say hi in the chat and let me know if you can hear me and if you can see the slide on the screen. Hello, can you guys hear me? There we go. Okay, yes, please say hi and let me know you hear me. I see a bunch of people are still logging in, so I'm going to wait just a moment here. Hello, so glad you guys can hear me. All right, I'm going to wait another minute or so and then we'll get started. So glad to see so many of you here today. All right, I'm going to get started, but I'm going to start a little slowly to give some more people time to get on here. My name is Jennifer Finetti, and I'm an admissions counselor with ScholarshipOwl. I've worked with high school and college students for several years, providing college coaching, admission counseling, financial aid and scholarship advising, career counseling, academic advising, college application coaching, essay assistance, and more. I've helped students get into their dream schools and help them earn scholarships that reduce their out-of-pocket cost. And providing essay coaching for admissions and scholarships is truly my specialty. If you're in the process of applying to colleges or applying for scholarships, you know that the quality of your essays is critical. One of the most common questions I'm asked is, what can I do to ensure that my essay gets the results I'm looking for? If you've been wondering the same thing, you're in luck, because today I'm going to share the top 10 tips and strategies that I've found to be helpful for my own kids, as well as for the students I've worked with. And the timing couldn't be better because we're right in the midst of application season. So it's an ideal day to talk about writing application essays. So let's take a look at what we're going to cover today. Okay, in today's webinar, we will discuss how to approach the college application essay, covering everything from how to select which prompts to respond to, how to develop a plan for your essay, and the actual mechanics and process you should apply when developing your application essays. We're going to go over tips and strategies to help your essay stand out from the rest, and I'll respond to questions you have during the Q&A portion of the webinar. As we go, if you have questions, please input them into the chat and I will respond to the questions during the Q&A. Throughout this webinar, I'll be looking for you guys to help out by engaging and interacting with me. So I'll occasionally ask a question and ask all of you to respond in the chat. This helps me to better understand who is watching, what kind of information is helpful, and what areas you might need additional information on. So let's try this out. I'd like to get a sense of who's watching the webinar right now. Can you respond in the chat? Indicate if you're a student by typing 1, and if you are a parent, type 2 in the chat. And for those who watch through the entire webinar, we'll be offering a couple of special thank you gifts, but more about that at the end of the webinar. So it's really important that you understand the importance of your application essay. Your essay provides a window into who you are and why the admissions rep should care about you. All factors being equal, a powerful essay may just tip the scales in your favor, or could tip them against you if another candidate's essay is more compelling than yours. A well-written essay demonstrates your creativity, uniqueness, and grasp of language and grammar. These are factors that can definitely influence an admissions rep. These same factors can also persuade a financial aid advisor to offer you a scholarship. If you are a strongly qualified student, your essay can reaffirm your GPA and test scores and solidify you in the eyes of their college rep. Alternatively, if there are gaps or issues in your qualifications, perhaps you feel your GPA or test scores don't truly represent your capabilities, or perhaps you have outstanding academics but haven't participated in extracurriculars to the level that you wish you had, your essay can actually help bridge the gap. The essay offers an opportunity for you to showcase your best assets, even within the constraints of a very specific essay topic. That's something we're going to discuss in greater detail later on in the presentation. So, the first strategy that will help you to write outstanding application essays is to truly understand the importance of the application essay and know how it can impact your chances of getting admitted to colleges and also how it may impact your ability to obtain a scholarship. Okay, so before moving on, I'd love to know which schools our audience is targeting today. Students, can you input the name of your first choice school into the chat window? That would be really helpful. And from what I've seen in the chat so far, it looks like we mostly have students, which is awesome. Okay, so if you're applying to colleges with the Common App, you'll be required to respond to one essay question, and you'll have several prompts to choose from. But be aware that many colleges will ask that you respond to one or more additional essay prompts beyond what's required by the Common App. And if you're applying to any of the University of California campuses, you'll be required to respond to 4 personal insight questions. Apply Texas offers 3 essay prompts, but depending on the school, sometimes you might only need to respond to 1 or 2 of them. And some of you may be using the Coalition app, which is now accepted by some private colleges. Bottom line, you want to be sure to visit the website for each college you're applying to so that you know what type of application they accept and so that you know what their application essay requirements are so that you aren't surprised. So how many of you already know that you'll be using the Common App to apply to 1 or more colleges? If so, reply to the chat with CA, and if you plan to apply to any UC or Apply Texas campuses, input UC or AT in the chat. I'd like to see what kinds of essays you guys need to write. Whichever application you're using to apply to colleges, be sure to read the essay instructions in detail. This is also relevant when applying for scholarships. Adhere to the instructions. This is not the time to try to break or bend the rules. If the essay has a minimum or maximum word count, stick to it. If the essay requires a specific font style, size, margin, double spacing, etc., make sure you adhere to the requirements. Always write your essay either in Google Docs or in a Word doc that you save on your computer. When you're finished and are ready to submit, if the application has a form for you to use for your essay, copy and paste your finished essay into the form, review it to ensure your formatting is still there, and fix it if it isn't, and then submit. Never, ever, ever write and edit your essay directly into the form, because if their system times out before you submit, you'll risk losing your entire essay. You want to read the essay prompt thoroughly and break it down into pieces to be sure you understand exactly what's being asked. Stay on topic throughout your essay. Make sure your essay actually responds to the topic. All too often, students start out on topic, but then they meander away from it later on in the essay. So the second strategy to ensure you write an outstanding application essay is to always adhere to the essay guidelines and always stay on topic. This sounds obvious, but you'd be surprised how often this is an issue. Remember the first choice school you input into the chat window? Have you taken time to research that school? It's important that you research each university you're applying to, especially the more selective universities. What are they looking for when making admission decisions? Most universities will have this information on their website. Taking the time to do this is important, as it may impact your decision about which essay topic will present you best to that particular school, enabling you to showcase how you fulfill what they're looking for in a student and how you'll fit with their campus culture. Sometimes you may be presented with a choice of essay topics. For example, as I mentioned, if you're using the Common App to apply to colleges, you'll be offered 7 essay prompts to choose from. And if you're applying to a UC school, you'll be asked to respond to 4 personal insight questions out of 8 possible essay topics. Note that these questions are not the same ones as the ones on the Common App. As such, depending on each school's requirements, you might need to write several application essays. For simplicity, in this presentation, I will discuss the process of writing one essay. But remember that you might actually have to write a few or even several different essays, depending on which colleges you're applying to. But don't worry, because the process and mechanics will be the same, whether you are writing for just one or many application essays. And of course, if you're planning to apply to scholarships, you'll be writing several essays as well. If you're given several essay prompts to choose from, rather than jumping on the first topic that catches your eye, spend time carefully considering all of the essay prompts available to you. Jot down notes about what type of essay you could write in response to each of the available prompts. Once you've done this, you'll be better able to gauge which essay prompt offers you the greatest opportunity to showcase your unique background, experience, and talents. Choose a topic that enables you to dig deep within yourself and that inspires you to share details and/or an anecdote from your experience. Admission reps want to get to know you, and the more you can share of yourself and the more connected you are to what you're writing about, the more you will pull the reader into your writing. And this is definitely what you want to do. If you're a student who has had to overcome significant barriers, you might want to choose a topic that lends itself to that, enabling you to discuss the personal or academic challenges you've experienced and how you overcame those challenges. But if you are a student who hasn't had significant barriers, then it's best to choose a topic that enables you to expound on your achievements. So what's a significant barrier? That might be health problems that have impacted your life, whether those health problems be yours or those of a parent or a sibling. If your family has struggled financially, resulting in significant hardship. Perhaps you've lost a loved one who is close to you. Perhaps you've had to overcome learning disabilities that impacted your academic success. You may have been raised by a single parent, and/or perhaps your parents are divorced or separated, or you were raised by guardians other than your parents. If there's been an abuse in your home, or if you or a close family member have struggled with addiction, these are the kinds of challenges that would be considered significant. But again, not everyone has these kinds of challenges in their life. In fact, most applicants do not. So if you really haven't dealt with these kinds of challenges in your life, then choose a different type of essay topic to write about. After you've done this initial work, show all of the essay prompts to your parents or another adult who knows you well. Describe why you've selected the prompt you chose and explain what you'll discuss in your essay. Ask for their input on your chosen prompt and your essay plan. Chances are that person will have additional insight that you can leverage as you move on to the next step. So the third strategy to follow to ensure you write an outstanding application essay is to choose the right topic. And by that, I mean to choose the right topic for you. Each of us is unique and has diverse interests and experiences. So choose the topic that makes the most sense for you and that enables you to write freely and easily. If you try to write an essay for a topic that isn't the right fit, you'll find it's difficult to get started and difficult to continue as you work through the body of your essay. If this happens to you as you're writing, you may want to reconsider the topic you chose and go with a different one. All right, so let's do another check-in. What's your greatest fear or concern about writing college application essays? Input your answer in the chat window. I do see some people are asking questions. It's no problem. I'm going to get to all your questions during the Q&A, so go ahead, use that chat to ask me questions, and we'll get to them shortly. Okay, so I want to talk briefly about the Common App. Many students ask about the Common App essay questions, so for your reference, I've listed them on this slide, but you can also easily find this information online. So that you're aware, the Common App essay prompts are the same as they were last year. Here are some fun facts, though, that might interest you as you consider the questions. The most popular essay prompt of the 2018-2019 application year was, share an essay on any topic of your choice. It can be one you've already written, one that responds to a different prompt, or one of your own design. 24.1% of students in the 2018-2019 school year chose that essay. The next most popular topics were discussion, accomplishment, event, or realization that sparked a period of personal growth and a new understanding of yourself or others. 23.7% of students chose that topic. And the third most popular topic was the lessons we take from obstacles we encounter can be fundamental to later success. Recount a time when you faced a challenge, setback, or failure. How did it affect you? And what did you learn from the experience? 21.1% of students chose that topic. So when thinking about this, which are you more inclined to do? Respond to a popular question or respond to one of the questions that is less popular? Input your response in the chat. And as you guys are doing that, I'll just let you know that you could honestly go either way. But if it were me, I might want to think about writing a response to a less common question, as essay readers can get a bit bored reading the same kinds of material. Okay, so once you've selected your essay prompt, it's time to create your outline. Start by copying and pasting the essay prompt on the top of your document so you can always easily refer to it. Next, create a rough outline, similar to the way you created outlines for essays in school. If the maximum allowed word count is pretty short, then you might only have 3 paragraphs for your essay, a short intro, a longer body paragraph, and a short conclusion. If the maximum allowed word count is more flexible or longer, then your essay might have 4 or 5 paragraphs, an intro, 2 to 3 body paragraphs, and a conclusion. Organize your outline according to the number of paragraphs you anticipate that you'll have. Within each section of your outline, jot down ideas for what you would like to include. There's no need for complete sentences at this point. Notes are fine. Be sure to review the essay prompt periodically to ensure that what you're including in your outline responds to the prompt, and to ensure that you're responding to the entire question rather than just a portion of it. Once your draft outline is complete, review what you've written and think about what makes you unique. Consider your academic abilities, your skills, talents, volunteer service, extracurriculars, etc. What will you be majoring in? How might your major impact what you write about in response to this prompt? Consider your personal background and challenges you've encountered and overcome. How much of any of these things have you actually incorporated into your outline? If you feel that you've missed some things you would really like to share, consider the essay prompt again and see what you can do to incorporate at least some of what makes you unique into your outline in a way that strengthens your response to the essay prompt. Avoid trying to cram details into your essay if they'll pull you off topic, but if there is a way to incorporate some of these details about yourself into the essay while still staying on topic, you can update your outline. If needed, you can also eliminate some things that were previously in your outline, so long as you do so while keeping the essay prompt in mind. If you know that you'll be if you know that you'll be writing more than one essay for each college, for example, if you're applying to UC schools or if you're applying to schools that require response to supplemental essay questions, make sure you don't put everything into this one essay, because you very well may need to write several application essays for each college. Okay, so I know that was a lot, but the fourth strategy that will help ensure you write an outstanding application essay is to always start with an outline. You'll be more organized, which will enable you to stay on topic and include what's important. Think about what you learned in school when writing essays. Essays require time and planning. Don't rush, especially with an essay this important. After starting with an outline, you'll proceed to writing your first draft. Then you'll review and edit your essay in a second round and do it again for a third round and possibly a fourth or fifth round if needed. The bottom line, don't start your application essay the night before it's due. The fifth strategy for writing an outstanding application essay is to always start early. If you wait till the last minute, it will show in your writing. When creating your rough draft, once again, start with the essay prompt at the top of your document. Begin writing the introduction, using your outline as the starting point. Strong essays have a hook that pulls the reader in from the get-go. What will your hook be? Each admission rep reads literally hundreds of essays. Put yourself in their shoes. Would you like to read the same kinds of essays over and over again? Your eyes would likely glaze over. You'll need to make sure that your essay has a strong intro to ensure your application reviewer is actually paying attention. With that in mind, spend some time on this first paragraph and do your best to set that hook while also ensuring that your first paragraph appropriately conveys the key points that will be discussed in your essay. So the sixth strategy for ensuring you write an outstanding application essay is to not be boring and predictable in your intro. Set the hook in your first paragraph to captivate admission reps who will be reading your essay. Be sure to show and not tell. This is really important. It's easy to say, I love playing soccer. I've been a competitive soccer player for the past 7 years, and I've made significant contributions to my high school's varsity team. But it takes more thought and care to truly show the reader how and why soccer is important to you. The best way to do this is by sharing details and examples that demonstrate your commitment to the sport. A UC admissions consultant with a blog called Ask Ms. Sun said it this way in a recent blog post. Follow the format of, this is what I want you to know. This is an example showing you what I want you to know. This is what I just told you. So here's an example. Soccer is truly integral to my life. In addition to training with my team every day, I also devote my personal time to training, running drills, and practicing shots on goal in my backyard before I get ready for school. I also do weight and cardio training in a fitness center to build strength and endurance. My younger sister is an avid soccer player as well, and I take time to work with her and her team every week. I'm a top-ranked player in my state and would love to be a Duke University Blue Devil, as I know I would be part of an elite team that would truly challenge me. See the difference? Next, write the body paragraphs for your essay, using both your outline and introductory paragraph to get you started. Be sure to review the essay prompt often to be sure that you're staying on topic, and always remember to show, not tell. Draft your concluding paragraph, being sure to summarize the points made in the preceding paragraphs, while also ending with a compelling final sentence. Within this paragraph, you'll want to refer back to the essay prompt and what you write, ensuring that the reader connects the dots. Review your essay in entirety, tweaking the phrasing where needed. Chances are you'll need to adjust your intro paragraph a bit now that you've written the entire essay, as you've got greater perspective, and you'll probably have a better arc throughout if you make some adjustments to that first paragraph. Now, you need to check your word count. How close are you to the maximum word count? If your essay is significantly under the maximum word count, go back into your essay and build it up further with more detail. If you are significantly over the word count, check to see what you can easily trim down. If you're over the word count, but not significantly over, then congratulations, you're where you should be for a first draft. So, the seventh strategy for ensuring you write an outstanding application essay is to always show and not tell. I know I already told you about the importance of starting early in a previous strategy, but here it is again. I can't emphasize enough how important it is that you start early so that you'll have plenty of time to edit, get feedback, and edit again. I recommend that you wait at least a full day before starting your second draft of the essay. You'll have a fresh perspective, enabling you to have greater insight into what edits are needed. Review your essay thoroughly. Review the essay prompt and make sure your essay appropriately answers the entire prompt. Assuming that you've exceeded the maximum word count somewhat, look for ways to trim your essay down to the appropriate length. Review and fix any grammatical, punctuation, and spelling errors. Review your essay to ensure you haven't used any specific words repetitively, as well as to ensure your content in general isn't repetitive. This is a common problem, especially for students who have written essays that are under the word count. If you find you have overused certain words or ideas, make the necessary revisions to resolve. Refrain from plugging in synonyms you can find in a thesaurus to make it sound like you have a big vocabulary. If you do, it's likely that admissions reps will recognize that you've done this. Instead, if you feel your vocabulary doesn't reflect your grasp of the English language, review what you've written and think about how you might elevate your writing without relying on the crutch of a thesaurus. Consider your tone and writing style to confirm that they reflect the writing skills of a student entering college, and to confirm that you come across as emotionally connected to what you're writing about. This is important. If you seem emotionally disconnected from your subject, your essay will feel flat to the reader. Refer to your outline and notes about what you wanted to cover in your essay. Have you hit all the points you planned? Did you leave anything on the table? And if so, do you want to make changes to incorporate anything that's missing? Or do you feel that the missing points can be omitted? Address any of these issues and finish up your edits so that you have a completed second draft. So the 8th strategy for ensuring you write an outstanding application essay is to leave enough time for subsequent drafts. And yes, I did say drafts because you're not yet done with your essay. It's important that you obtain feedback from one or more adults. We haven't done a check-in for a while, so respond in the chat window and let me know who you're likely to approach for feedback about your essay. It could be a parent or guardian, a teacher, a guidance counselor, college admissions advisor, or someone else that you trust. Once you receive feedback, consider it and incorporate the recommended edits that you agree with, keeping in mind the word count as well as your own view of the recommendations that have been made. Remember, this is your college application essay, and it should reflect your own thoughts, ideas, and experiences. Refrain from allowing an adult to rewrite your essay for you. Admission reps are pretty savvy and will likely be able to tell if someone else has written much of your essay. Most college application essay topics lend themselves to a personal narrative, meaning that you likely will not have to do much, if any, research to write your essay. But if you happen to be writing an essay that does require research, it should go without saying that you will also need to cite sources of any data and information you found online. And it should also go without saying you must ensure that all writing is your own. Do not plagiarize or create the appearance that you're plagiarizing. So the 9th strategy for writing an outstanding application essay is to always obtain feedback from one or more adults you trust, who you know have strong writing and editing skills. After all the effort you've spent on this essay, it can be tempting to rush to upload it and finally click the submit button on your application. But it's so important that you take the time to review your essay again and ask your reviewers to do the same. Be sure your essay is error-free. No spelling errors, no punctuation errors. If you've been using track changes in Microsoft Word, or if you've been editing within Google Docs, you may find that while making changes, you've accidentally omitted a comma or a period. Be sure to review your essay thoroughly and fix any issues you find. You should also reread the instructions for the essay and confirm that your document is formatted per the requirements, and confirm you're within the required word count. Once you're certain your essay is just the way you want it, you should be good to go. So the 10th strategy for ensuring you write an outstanding application essay is to thoroughly review your essay prior to submission. Once you know it's the way you want it, follow the upload instructions on the application or copy and paste it into the essay window. Next, go through the entire application to make sure that you've completed everything and attached any required documents. Once you know the application is complete and accurate and your essay or essays are attached, click the submit button on your application. So, some tips to remember. Write about something that truly matters to you and that also responds to the essay prompt. If you're writing about computer science, what is it about that field that fascinates you? What do you hope to accomplish once you have your degree? Be emotionally connected to your subject and show that in your writing. I have read many draft application essays, and I find this is one of the most common issues I come across, that the writer seems disconnected or indifferent in their emotional tone. Show your passion and your determination. Choose words and phrases that let that come through in your writing. If there are things you want to communicate about yourself, find ways to put a bit of that into your essay without going off on an obvious tangent. This can be challenging if the essay prompt isn't really related to what you want to discuss. You might not be able to convey everything you would like, but you may be able to integrate 1 or 2 points that support the topic. If possible, incorporate a brief anecdote that demonstrates your emotional connection to the subject and that can showcase your ability to problem solve a situation. Review your use of figurative language, syntax, vocabulary, etc. Your writing should be collegiate in style and tone, while still being personal, reflecting who you are and what you care about. Always proofread carefully and ask at least 2 adults to read your essay and give you feedback. All right, one more check-in question. Have you attended one of my webinars before? Please input yes or no into the chat window, and if yes, let me know which of my webinars you've attended previously. Now it's time for questions. I'm going to be reviewing all the questions that have been input into the chat so I can respond to them. And if you have more questions, you can go ahead and continue inputting them into the chat. I'm going to scroll all the way to the bottom so that I respond to the questions in the order they were received. Okay. I see people are typing, so I can't quite scroll to the bottom yet here. Some people are saying they're worried about saying the correct things. They're worried about their grammar. Somebody said their greatest fear is giving up too much unimportant information, which I think can happen. This is why having multiple drafts and having adults you trust read your essay and giving you feedback is so important. Okay, so somebody's asking what's the appropriate length. Most of the time an application essay will tell you what the length should be. If they say it's a maximum word count of 500 or 650, whatever that number is, you want to be as close to that number as you can without going over. I wouldn't recommend, for example, if you have a 650 word maximum count, I would not submit something that's only 400 words. I would try to get close to 650 without going over. Okay. People are asking how I can be sure to keep my essay interesting. I think one of the best ways to keep your essay interesting is to talk about things about yourself that you think are interesting to other people. That's why it's really important to figure out what makes you unique and to tie that into your essay. Somebody's saying they worry they have too much to say and the word count is too small. I totally understand that. It's okay in your first draft to go over the word count. And then when you go through in subsequent drafts, you can trim it down. Having somebody else give you feedback can be really helpful too, because sometimes they can trim down in places where maybe you didn't think you could. It's just an extra set of eyes that they'll be able to better help you figure out what's most important. Same thing for punctuation and spelling. People are asking about that as well. I think, first of all, there is a bit of a misnomer. I hear things on both sides on this. Some people say that it doesn't really matter what your punctuation and grammar and spelling are, that people are more concerned with your creativity and general writing ability. I disagree. I think that, if you have one stray typo or something in your essay and everything else is really well written, I don't think that's going to be a problem. It's not going to keep you from getting admitted. But if you have multiple errors, it definitely will make somebody think twice about you. So make sure that the spelling, grammar, and punctuation is correct. The good news is it's really easy to get that reviewed by somebody else. Just, talk to an English teacher that you work with, or again, if you've got a parent or other relative who's a really strong writer, other people who maybe are stronger in those areas can help you catch those errors. Okay, let's see here. Most people are saying that they would want to respond to an essay prompt that's less popular. I think that's a good way to go. Somebody asked, do you need to have an intro in the essay? Yes, I do think you need an intro. It doesn't have to be a long intro, just a couple, maybe 2 or 3 sentences even if the word count is low. But if you don't have an intro, it can feel very sudden to jump into an essay. So I definitely think an intro is needed. Also make sure to always use paragraphs. I've seen essays where students will, write like they're writing on their iPhone notepad where it's just this blob of information. Make sure you separate your content into paragraphs. Okay, what if we haven't decided on our major yet? That shouldn't matter, because when you're writing on your essay topic, there are so many different things you can write about in your essay. You don't have to choose a topic that relates to your major specifically. Now, if the only choice you have is about, let's say, what are your academic and career goals, you have to do the best you can with that. If you don't know exactly what you're going to do, it's okay to be undecided and to write about being undecided. But you might want to kind of talk about the areas you're leaning towards. Or you might, if let's say you're undecided because you have a number of skills and interests, you could write about that too. So there's always a way to respond to a topic, even if you have an undecided major. Somebody's asking how to have a scholarship for 4 years of their studies. That's not really related to this topic specifically, except of course to get scholarships you need to apply for them. And applying for scholarships means you're going to be writing a lot of application essays. So on that level, If you need scholarships to go to college, apply for scholarships. So many students talk about applying for scholarships and then they don't. So make that part of what you're doing. Okay, how do I write an entire closing paragraph without sounding super repetitive? I think it's important that a conclusion does touch on what the topic of the essay is to bring the reader back to the topic, but you can still make it interesting. And I can't really say that more than that right now because I'm not looking at your specific essay, but that's part of the feedback cycle. If you feel like your concluding paragraph's a bit repetitive, when you get feedback from somebody, ask them for their input about your conclusion. Why shouldn't we be using a thesaurus? Because sometimes a word that's supposed to mean the same thing really doesn't mean the same thing, and it can sound like a word, like a fish out of water a little bit. So make sure that if you do choose to use a thesaurus, make sure the word truly flows and fits within the sentence structure that you have, for the sentence you've written, and also make sure it fits your style as a writer. You don't want one or two words to stick out in an awkward way, and I think sometimes using a thesaurus can cause that. Okay, people are saying they're going to have parents or a teacher or a counselor read their essay. This is great. Okay. Sorry, I'm just scrolling through people here. Does the essay need to connect to our studies or major? Only if you've chosen a topic where it specifically is about that. If it makes sense and if it's something you want to write about, then choose a topic that relates to your choice of study. But there usually, depending on what the application options are for you, usually there are essay prompts that don't necessarily relate to your choice of major, and you can choose one of the other topics. Okay. Most people have not seen one of my webinars, so that's good to know. Okay, do scholarship readers evaluate scholarship essays in the same way as college papers or in a different way? With a scholarship, what they're really looking for is somebody who is unique and kind of stands out. You have to think about it this way. In many cases, a scholarship is offered to just one student. If it's a third-party scholarship, universities often will offer multiple scholarships of the same type. But if you're applying to a scholarship where they're just going to have one or two people that are selected, your essay really needs to help you stand out. So they're looking for something that makes you unique and different, that sort of piques their attention. And I think in many ways that's what college application readers are also looking for, but it is a little bit different. How do I write a why college essay? I think the question is, how do I write an essay about, why do you want to go to our college or something like that? That's why I said that it's really important to research the colleges you're interested in. Even though you might think that all colleges are looking for the same kind of student, they might be looking for some similar things, but usually on each college's website, they'll have a mission statement page or a vision statement. They'll have some information on their website that gives you a clue as to what they're really looking for in their students. I talked about this in one of my other webinars, but for example, if you go to the Yale website and the Harvard website and look at what they're each looking for their applicants, their answers have some similarity, but there are definitely some differences. So really do that research on the college you're thinking about, and when you're responding to an essay about why do you want to go to our college, make sure that you flavor your essay with things that they are looking for in their students. Okay, do you know which program supplies a word count, Word or PDF, etc.? In Microsoft Word, yes, there is a word count at the bottom left of the screen that you'll be able to see. If you're in Google Docs, there's an option within, I can't remember if it's the tools menu, but one of the menus within Google Docs does let you also look at word count. I'm nervous my vocabulary isn't good enough and I'm not a descriptive writer. Totally understand, that's okay. Do your first draft and then get your feedback. And other people that maybe have possibly higher vocabulary than yours or better writing skills will be able to help you boost your essay to where it needs to be. What's the proper way to respond to a prompt that asks for how your previous experiences and talents can contribute to this specific university? Again, it's about doing research on that university, and it's also about knowing what your previous experiences and talents are. it's really difficult for me to sort of respond to that specifically here because it really depends on the college and what your experiences are. But for example, if you are applying to a school that is known for sciences, and if you're a STEM major, then one of the things you could talk about is your background, experience, and knowledge in STEM and why that would be a good fit at that school. If you are applying to a school that really emphasizes community involvement and engagement, it would be good for you to write your essay and talk about your extracurriculars and volunteer service. So those are the kinds of things you want to think about. So do your research on the college and figure out how you fit and then respond in that way. Okay, how do you stay attached emotionally to a topic you didn't choose or like? Totally understand that question. Makes sense. So the first thing I would say is if you have choices of essay topics, choose one that you like better. If you don't have a choice, then figure out what you can pull out of that essay topic that does interest you. Find a way to relate to it within your own life and within your background and show that within your essay. In school, we often have to write about things we don't love, but we do our best to respond. With an application essay, it's similar but slightly different because in an application essay, you need to reveal who you are. Whereas for most of your essays for school, it's not about you. You're researching a topic and then presenting the information you found. So application essays are a little bit different. You do need to become a little bit more personal and you need to be engaged in a slightly different way. So keep that in mind as you're doing your writing. Will my parents being incarcerated help me get into Harvard? What your parents' situation is will not specifically help you get into a university. However, what you have overcome can make a difference as you're writing your essays. So if you are writing an essay and it's about challenges and adversity you've gone through, and if you want to talk about your experience as the child of incarcerated parents, they'll be very interested in hearing how you dealt with that, how you handled it, what your life has been like, and how you've been able to move forward in your own future despite the challenges you've encountered. And if you have a high GPA and high test scores and a strong essay, you have a good chance of getting admitted into your top choice school. But remember, Harvard is really looking for that high GPA and that high test score. Writing a great essay can make a difference, but it's not going to really make up for poor grades and poor test scores if that happens to be your situation, because it's an Ivy League school. And so to get into an Ivy League, you need, well over a 4.0, and you probably need, 1450 or higher on an SAT, for example, to get into Harvard. So be aware of that. Always apply to a myriad level of schools. You want to pick some safety schools and match schools and reach schools. And the way I talk about safety, match, and reach relates to your test scores and your GPA. I've talked about this more in previous webinars, but that we're not talking about that today, but I'm just letting you know that it's really important you apply to multiple schools and that you make sure some of them are safety, some are match. And then if you want to apply to some reach schools, you can do that as well. What's one thing you've noticed that makes you want to stop reading the essay immediately? Wow, that's a great question. For me, there are so many different things that can make me want to maybe not stop reading the essay, but that'll make me a little bit more skeptical as I read it. It's really somebody who comes across as sort of, I don't know, the word I guess I'd use is bored. If they don't seem like they care all that much in the way that they write, and I don't mean so much spelling and grammar and things like that, although that matters to me, but it's more about if they're not excited and eager to tell me about their life through this essay, then I'm not as excited and eager to read about their life, right? Because it comes across kind of boring. So, be excited, be unique, be engaged. Grab me in the intro and tell me something really different about yourself that maybe you haven't told a lot of people. You don't have to reveal things that are private to the extent that you don't want to talk about private things, but, just start your essay in a really interesting way. Are there alternatives to having people proofread my essay? When possible, I plan to use my past experiences and challenges. However, some of those are pretty personal. I'd prefer not to share with multiple adults, even those close to me. Do you know of any online anonymous websites that offer this sort of stuff? So for the person who's asking me this, yes, there are alternatives by going with somebody that you don't know personally. And there's nothing wrong with that, actually. I'm an essay reader. I help students with essays, and we'll talk about that in a minute. So if you wanted to have me give you feedback, I can do that. There are other people who do that as well. One idea might be that if you don't want to, for example, ask one of your parents or a close relative, you could ask a teacher or counselor at school. You could choose a teacher that you haven't actually had as your own teacher, for example. Let's say you ask a different English teacher in the school. You could approach that person and explain that what you've written about is rather personal and that it's hard for you to have somebody you know read it, and so you'd prefer to have somebody that doesn't know you read it. A school guidance counselor is another good choice because they do tend to keep things more confidential. But you can also, there are services online where somebody could give you feedback, and you could try those as well. So there are alternatives. Okay. What's the best way to win scholarships besides applying to a lot of them? I've applied for about 70. Wow, that's really incredible. The best way to win scholarships is to focus on the kinds of scholarships you're applying for. So I always say, make sure you apply for scholarships from the universities you're applying to. That's number one. Number two is to apply to local scholarships in your own community. Your high school guidance counselor or career center staff member can give you a list of local scholarships and talk to you about different tips and strategies for getting those particular scholarships. And then you can also apply to third-party scholarships, such as the ones you'd find on the ScholarshipOwl platform or that you would find online. Applying for scholarships that don't require an essay or a video or anything like that, where you just kind of fill out a little form and hit submit, those really aren't scholarships that you earn. They're more like lotteries that you win. So for students who are preferring to apply to a bunch of those scholarships, what's really going to happen the vast majority of the time is that you may not get those scholarships. The ones that require a little bit more legwork, where you have to write an essay or you have to create a video or something like that, are going to be ones where you're more likely to win simply because there'll be less competition. So I always recommend that people apply for the ones that make you work a little harder. The other thing is applying for scholarships that have really kind of unusual essay topics is a great way to go, because not as many people will be applying to those scholarships. So those are some strategies for that. Also, just for those of you who have high GPA, high test scores, you can get merit scholarships from the universities you're applying to simply based on your GPA and your test scores. So, in addition to applying for scholarships, do the best you can to keep up your grades and to get really good scores on the SAT or ACT. That will help you earn some merit money. Okay, how would you respond to a prompt that asks for how your previous experiences and talents? Oh, I actually already responded to that. I think somebody asked the same question. Okay, how do I know that my writing is consistently intriguing? That's where feedback comes in. So after you write your draft and get feedback from other people, you'll get a sense from them of how good your writing is. Okay, would attending 3 different high schools be considered as a barrier I had to overcome? Possibly. It depends on the circumstances of why you had to attend 3 different high schools. For example, if your family moved a lot and you had to start over in new communities every time, that definitely can be something that's challenging academically, challenging socially, so that can definitely work for you. Okay, creativity and uniqueness, is that the best way to stand out? Yes. Okay, how many body paragraphs are needed in the essay? I mentioned this earlier in the presentation, but if it's a shorter word count, go for 3 paragraphs total: a short intro, a mid-sized body, and a short conclusion. If you have a bit of more leeway or a larger word count, you could go for a slightly longer intro, slightly longer conclusion, and perhaps 2 or even 3 body paragraphs. It just kind of depends on the word count that you're allowed. When students write great essays, have good grades, and participate in extracurriculars, it looks like somebody didn't finish their question. Okay, what would be a hook sentence? When I said to set the hook, it's not necessarily just a sentence. A hook could be a couple sentences. It could be a question that you ask. It could be an anecdote that you tell in your opening. There are all kinds of things that could be a hook. And that's something I would have to talk to you about directly. If I was working with you, I could help you more. Is it more important to write about your achievements or personality in your essay? Again, it depends on the type of essay prompt that you're choosing. Writing about your achievements is far more important, though, than writing about your personality. You can reveal your personality in your writing, but you don't want to tell somebody, I'm really creative, I'm really friendly. You don't want to share facts about yourself that way. You want to reveal that in the things that you do. So, for example, if you're creative, instead of telling somebody you're creative, instead talk about art projects that you've created, or talk about your performing arts experience. This is where I talked about show, don't tell. So remember that. Always remember, show, don't tell. When students write good essays, have good grades, do extracurriculars, why do they get rejected? Well, it really depends. That goes back to safety, match, and reach schools. If, for example, you might have good grades, let's say you have a 3.8 GPA, and let's say you got a 1200 on your SAT. But if you're applying to schools where their average accepted GPA is a 4.2 and their average accepted SAT is 1400, that might explain why you're getting rejected, even though you do have good grades and even though you do have a good test score. So you want to find schools that are a good match for where you are academically. And by doing that, you are going to be better able to maximize the number of acceptances you receive. I don't know if I should revise my essay. I feel like it's really good and I don't know how to make it better. That's a great place to be. The best way to find out is to ask 2 people for feedback and see what they think. What if I have a really good intro, but the rest of the essay falls flat? Then it sounds like you need to go back and work on your essay a bit. Again, getting feedback from other people and asking them for their input on what you can do to make the body and the conclusion more exciting is going to be important. For writing an intro, is it quickly overlooked if you start off with the basics of yourself? And somebody said, for example, and they didn't give the example, so I have to keep going here. Do you have a favorite essay of all time? Wow, that's a great question. I don't have a personal favorite essay, but I will tell you a story that I heard from an AP English teacher when I was in high school that I think is a great story. I don't recommend this for everybody, but it gives you an idea. At the time, my teacher talked about a previous student of hers who had applied for Stanford. And the question that the student had to respond to was, if you were to write a book, what would it be called and what would it be about? And the student who had a great GPA, great test scores, the person responded in their essay, I would not write a book. And that person was accepted to Stanford. So you might think about that and go, why would that person get away with that? Well, because that student had moxie. That student had the guts to do something really different and to basically say, take me as I am. Right? You see how well I do in school. You've seen my grades. You've seen my scores. You've seen my extracurriculars. I don't need to bother responding to this essay prompt. Now, again, I don't say that everybody should be doing that. It's not going to work for the vast majority of people. But for whatever reason, whatever that person brought to the table, that essay did not keep them from getting into Stanford. So, and that person was unique, right? Different than anyone else that applied. So that's my great story. Okay. Do colleges generally admit students aiming for specific majors? Will they automatically pick someone from a not so popular major choice, or is it still just as critical? It's not really about admitting students to aiming for specific majors. It's about who you are and how you present yourself, and it's about your academic qualifications. So don't worry so much about that. There are plenty of schools that will accept students who apply undeclared. So if you truly don't know what you want to do, apply undeclared. But if you are, for example, an engineering major, don't apply under a different major hoping that you can get in. Let's say, don't apply as a sociology major and hope to change to engineering, because your request to change your major may be declined. A lot of schools are really watching out for students who change majors that way. So you want to watch out for that. Let's see here. Is Grammarly good to use on a college essay? I've heard of Grammarly. I'm not as familiar with it, so I can't really comment on that. Is there an example of a correctly written essay to look at? There are lots of examples online of college application essays, and there'll be some great ones that you can find. But just be careful that you don't plagiarize, or even if you're not really plagiarizing, don't borrow certain things from samples you find online. You have to be really careful to not let other people's essays influence what you write. Okay, how can I stand out in a scholarship essay intro? That's kind of what I've talked about already. Is it okay to emphasize and exaggerate a few things in an essay? I do not recommend lying, but I think you can, you can talk about things that you've done without lying. It's hard to say. Can you exaggerate? Like let's say you were working on a project and maybe it was a group project. Don't say you did the whole thing yourself, but you can certainly point out the things that you did that were really important in that project. But I never recommend lying. Be yourself, be who you are. Somebody's asking, what do you mean safety school? I believe I answered that earlier. Do we have to speak in formal or informal language? This is not a research paper. This is a personal statement essay. So you don't want to be casual, but you don't want to be too formal either. You want to speak from the heart. What can I do to improve my writing skills? I highly recommend working with your English teacher, maybe going in after school to meet with your English teacher and get some tips and advice on that. What if you're too excited and end up coming across condescending or over the top? Don't do that. That would be my best advice. If you already recognize that you're coming across in some way like you're arrogant or that you're embellishing or whatever, resist the urge to do that. And when you get feedback from other people, they will be able to help you with that. How can you be excited to write an essay? It's so funny. Different person asked from the other direction. You can be excited to write an essay because you're thinking about all of your college plans and how this essay might make a huge difference for you. And it's exciting to be able to share something about yourself that may make a difference in you getting into college, right? Otherwise, they're really looking at numbers. They're looking at your GPA and they're looking at your test score. They're not looking at you. So your essay gives them a chance to look at you and to share that part of yourself. If you're somebody who has volunteered for an organization for all 4 years of high school and it's, you've spent a lot of time and energy in that volunteer work, that's a great opportunity to share that. If you're an athlete and you've put in tons of hours preparing, for varsity meets, another great opportunity to talk about those things. If you've got an unusual situation at home where you're caring for a sick parent, these are all opportunities to share what makes you unique and special. Are there any topics that are too intense for an application essay? I would just say if it's too intense in the sense that that maybe, I would stay away from things that are incredibly controversial. I would stay away from political topics. You don't need to reveal your political leaning. I don't think you need to do that because you never know who's going to be reading your essay. I would stay away from religion because, again, you don't know who's going to be reading your essay. If you have a specific opinion on a controversial social issue, such as abortion, the right to die. I mean, there's all kinds of things that somebody who is more religious might be uncomfortable with. So if you are writing this application essay, try to stay away from things that are overly controversial. Okay, where should I look for scholarships? You can look on the ScholarshipOwl website. You can contact your high school guidance counselor or career center to talk about local scholarships. And of course, you can apply for scholarships through the universities you're applying to. Okay. All right, is humor good in an essay? Yes, if it's good humor, definitely something funny is a good idea to go. What makes or breaks a scholarship essay? Again, I think for me, it's being connected to the topic and staying on topic. There's nothing more frustrating for me than when I read an essay that starts well and then it completely meanders and never goes back to what the essay topic was. Okay. It's possible to write about yourself in an essay from a different point of view. I guess it's possible to do that, but most application essays are written in first person, so I would tend to stick with first person. Okay, somebody's asking, is it okay to talk about being homeless and abused as a child but having excelled in school? Absolutely. If you've had challenging experiences that you have overcome, is a great place to talk about it is in your application essay. Can an essay be written in story form or second and third person? Again, I don't recommend that you do that. My sister had a 4.5 GPA and 1580 SAT. She was an excellent writer and was rejected from Harvard. Yes, that definitely can happen. Because the Ivy League schools are getting applications from students very much like your sister. when you're at the cream of the crop and you're applying against other people who are very similar, unfortunately, there are going to be some outstanding qualified students who are rejected. How do they find out you plagiarized? You've probably, or some of you may be familiar with the online application Turnitin. If you've used that in high school, certainly application readers are familiar with Turnitin.com. Also, just if it seems like it feels like it might be plagiarized, they can Google it and kind of get a sense of if you did that. There are some websites and services where people offer to write application essays for a fee. You can bet that application representatives or admission representatives are aware of those websites, and they probably have received some of those same essays before. Do not pay somebody to write your essays. Why do colleges care about me as a person? They care about you because you're going to be coming to their campus and they want to know who you are. Imagine if you had 15,000 students applying to your college, right? You're an admissions reader and you and your team are trying to sift through 15,000 applications to pick the 4,000 students that are best to admit. The only way they can really do that is to get to know you. I'm married to an immigrant. Would this be wrong to write about as a challenge I've overcome? Not at all. I think that would be a great thing to write about. Okay, so thank you for sticking with me, and I want to get to my thank you gifts that I'm going to be offering, or not, I shouldn't say thank you gifts, to the thank yous, though, that we are offering. So hang on one second here. As a thank you for attending this webinar, we're offering a checklist tool as well as 2 opportunities for you to work directly with an admissions counselor. So first, we're offering my application essay checklist. This is an invaluable tool you can use throughout the essay writing process, whether you're applying to colleges or applying to scholarships. This is an ideal companion for this webinar, and I know you'll find it to be a very helpful resource. Next, we normally offer a free 10-minute introductory session with a ScholarshipOwl counselor with our webinars, but for this webinar, we're offering the first 50 people who sign up a special session with me, and that session can be up to 30 minutes in length. Everyone who watches this webinar live will receive the email with the link, but only the first 50 who sign up will receive this special session. Since we have a huge number of people registered for this webinar, you're going to want to respond quickly and schedule a session if this is something that interests you. During this session, you'll have an opportunity to ask whatever questions you have about college, career exploration, financial aid, scholarships, and more, enabling you to get answers to your questions about your own unique situation. Because, of course, in a webinar setting, it's really hard to give individual advice. In addition, I'm really excited that we're offering a discounted rate on our essay assistant service. This service is already offered at a really reasonable rate, but for the first 10 people who sign up, we're offering this service at a special discount. For those who do sign up for this service, I'll be able to work with you directly on an application essay. This could be a college application essay or a scholarship application essay. We'll start with an initial coaching session by phone, and then after that, you'll email me your first draft. I'll respond back with written feedback on your essay, and then after you incorporate the feedback, I'll review it again for a second time and give additional written feedback. Then you'll send me your next version, and I'll give you a final round of feedback. This is an outstanding service that will boost your chances of getting into college or boost your scholarship chances. And of course, the feedback you receive will also help you to improve your writing skills for future essays as well, because the feedback cycles are an outstanding learning opportunity that you'll take with you as you go forward. As with a free 30-minute session, we expect we're going to have a lot of interest in this, especially since we're right in the middle of the application season. So if you would like to access this service, you're going to want to sign up right away. So you're going to be able to download the application essay checklist from an email you'll receive after the webinar concludes. If you don't see the email within the next few hours, be sure to check your spam filter in case the email gets caught in your filter. The link to the free 30-minute session registration will also come to you over email after the webinar. And here is a link to the discounted essay assistant service. Okay. 1 second here. I'm going to place this link into the chat so that everyone can see it. Okay. So you're also going to receive this offer in a follow-up email after the webinar. And in that link, and in that email, you'll also see a link to where you can replay the webinar. But you can also click the link right here in the chat window if you're interested in signing up for that discounted essay service. Thank you so much for attending. These webinars are offered as a free service, And it would be so helpful if you could leave a positive review of your experience at Trustpilot. You're going to receive a separate email from Trustpilot. All you need to do is click the link in the email and you'll be able to leave a review. We are going to be having more webinars coming up, so be sure to watch your email as well as our social posts so you'll be in the loop. Hope you've enjoyed the time spent with me today and that you found the information valuable. Thanks so much, and I'll see you guys next time.